What's up, everybody? Welcome into Around the Felt. We have a little bit of a Week 18 recap we're going to bring you guys tonight, but most of it's going to be, all the different head coaching firings, all the GM firings, and then me and Colin, my co-host over here, as you can see.
Yes, sir.
We're going to be doing a little mock draft for the non-playoff teams. So we're going to be doing, gut reaction picks 1 through 18 later in the podcast. And, we'll get into some fan submitted questions as well. So a little different than normal, but honestly, outside of the Vikings Lions game and a couple of the different playoff teams that made it in, and I guess, Bengals, Dolphins, and Falcons, there's not a whole lot of matchups that matter. So we're not going to get too in deep to it.
Yeah, come on. It's the playoffs. We got to dwell on the teams that missed out. Let's focus on the future. And it's going to be a great weekend of football. Very excited. And, for Reagan and I, our teams did not make the playoffs, which is why we're excited to do a little mini mock tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Got to keep the other 18. Hey, think about it. There's more fan bases out there that are interested in the mock drafts and the playoffs aspect.
That is true. Mathematically, you are accurate, my friends. Yo, you're looking very nice. New camera.
I did get a new camera. Yeah.
Look at this guy.
Yep. So, you could really see the acne on my head a little bit better now. But no, yeah, nice camera. We may have to get the link for that. Garrett, the graphic design guy, got it for me for Christmas. So, he might have to send the link around for the rest of the crew to get. But
Very
it definitely is
thoughtful,
noticeable.
Very thoughtful, G. That's great. Before we get into the news, Reagan, I know you're spearheading the news tonight. Just want to give our final regular season records from the picks this season.
We don't have to.
Reagan, it wasn't your best season. You went 125, 141, and 5 against the spread. 155 and 116 straight up. So 39 games above 500. There you go. It's not bad. It doesn't really compare to.
Yeah, I'm just going to stick with fantasy football.
Didn't really compare to what I did. I went 143, 123, and 5 against the spread. So that's 20 games above. Now, I don't even know how profitable that would be with the VIGs that Vegas gets. It's probably less than 10 units, but still, at least we're in the positive. And straight up, 176 and 93. 83 games above 500. It's pretty damn good.
No, that's definitely really good. From my reaction to that is I'm just going to do fantasy football next year. Stick to what I know.
More underdog lineups.
Yeah, that, and maybe, maybe don't bet on the Titans every week. I think they were 2-15 against the spread. So that one kind of hurt.
Yeah, you got to stop taking the Titans, man.
I just got to stop betting with my head, and I get angry, and I'm like, you know what? They're so due. But they really weren't due at all this year. Next year, though, flip the script, baby.
Yeah. We'll see about that.
Yeah, no. But let's get into the news. So we had 3 coaching firings. First off, Antonio Pierce out as the Raiders head coach. I really wasn't that surprised. And, fun little, I guess it doesn't really, I don't know. I guess you would count it for him, but I'll get into it in a minute. And you can tell me if you would count that or not. But, he's obviously out as the Raiders coach. I really wasn't that surprised by that. I just kind of thought the way it was going is just a weird direction for the franchise. And, I've heard John Gruden's name being floated back around. So I wouldn't be shocked. Yeah.
There's no way Gruden gets hired again. There's no way.
By the Raiders. Well, dude, think about it. He didn't get fired because, the Raiders ownership wanted him gone. He got basically blackballed by the NFL, and he's suing them. And if he wins that, they can't keep him out of the league. So, yeah, you didn't hear about that?
No, I did. I just forgot. It's been a couple years. I just forgot. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that is. Are they still paying him from his first contract, or do they not have to pay him because of the NFL? That whole situation.
I don't know how
he signed a 10-year deal. I know he signed a 10-year deal initially, which is crazy for a coach. But
I'm not really sure how that works exactly when it comes to that because he got mainly fired. I know him and Mark Davis have a very good relationship. You would think Vrabel's a name that'll be, floated around for this as well, just with the Tom Brady aspect.
Going to New England. He's going to New England for sure.
Probably, but Tom Brady still is a 10% owner, so you'd think at the very least, there's a chance.
Perhaps. For Antonio Pierce, I wasn't shocked that he was fired. I almost was kind of expecting it. It's tough, man. He was in a bad spot. Like, the front office just didn't give him an answer at quarterback, and it's like you're going to the season with O'Connell and Minshew. It's like, what do you expect? Like, you looked at that team on paper before the season. You're like, I'd be surprised if they won 7 games, like that roster was depleted. And in sports most important position, he wasn't given an answer. And they didn't even give him an opportunity to coach with a young quarterback, even though it's going to be difficult for the Raiders to even get one this year. I mean, this franchise is a really tough spot, and I know this is not an opening that I would consider very attractive.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, a very weird spot they're in right now, I would say. You would imagine they're going to be drafting a quarterback. I mean, I know they're slated to be picking 6, so it's tough because you look at the teams in front of them, and at the very least, Giants and Titans, you'd imagine who would take a quarterback. I'd assume the Browns too, so there's 3 teams ahead of them that'll probably be drafting a quarterback.
The Browns are the wild card, right? Because the Titans at 1, they're taking a quarterback, I think 100%. They could go the route where they get a guy like Abdul Carter, and they're like, we don't want to invest in one of these quarterbacks. They're in an in-between spot, the Titans, because they were rocking with Will Levis this year, who clearly was not ready to lead a team to the playoffs. While they brought in a bunch of veteran free agents, they gave Calvin Ridley the bag. They traded for L'Jarius Sneed and gave him the bag. Lloyd Cushenberry in the offensive line. You made all these win-now moves when your young quarterback wasn't ready for that, and now it looks like they're going to move on from him. But now you got to think the Titans are taking a quarterback at 1. Browns, for me, are the wild card. If this was last year's draft, there's no doubt the Browns are taking Jaden Daniels or Drake May, whoever they preferred. This year, though, like, all these draft analysts are saying Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward would be QB 7 and 8 if those 6 quarterbacks drafted in the top 12 last year were in this draft. So for a team like Cleveland that has so much money invested in Deshaun Watson, where he's almost on your team for 2 more years, there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to have so much dead money anyways. And it's a team that made the playoffs last year. Could you at number 2 with Cleveland say, like, hey, let's stick with Watson. We don't really have an out. It's not like the second quarterback off the board's a slam dunk prospect. Can we take a guy like Abdul Carter to pair with Myles Garrett
or
and
trade
you run
back.
It back with Watson, or trade back? Yeah, you trade back one spot with the Giants so they can get their quarterback. The Raiders would be calling to go up to 2. I think that's the Browns' best path, honestly, than taking a quarterback where he's not an A-plus prospect and you're taking him number 2 overall and passing on a lot of really good defensive talent at that spot, in my opinion. Or you could even target like Travis Hunter. I mean, I know corner's not their biggest need, but just the type of athlete, like, you're picking 2nd overall, you do have a lot of talent in that roster. You can go best player available or trade back and do this, take best player available. I think that is a very plausible scenario for Cleveland, but it's also like this report came out that Watson has a setback in his Achilles recovery. And now it's like, well, they do need an option at quarterback. They need someone else in the room that's not Jameis Winston or DTR or Bailey Zappi.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%.
The problem is the supply of quarterbacks does not meet the demand this year.
No, not at all. But in other head coaches that were fired, Doug Pederson's out as a Jaguars coach. This one was actually interesting to me because I thought, like, for sure he was going to get fired midseason. And down the stretch, I mean, the Jaguars were playing hard with Mac Jones as their quarterback. Their last 6 games were decided by 1 score or less. So they really were hanging around. They were fighting for him. And, even in a week 18 game that's meaningless, like, that game went into overtime. So he definitely didn't lose the locker room. So I was like, in the back of my mind, like, does he keep his job just because he didn't lose the locker room? And obviously, they dealt with a lot of injuries. But I think at the end of the day, Shad Khan was just so pissed with the fact that, he called it before the season the best roster they've ever had in the history of the franchise. So the fact that it was such a dud of a year, I think you have to move on.
Yeah, I agree. This one was an easy one. The Jags' job was definitely going to open. I know Trevor Lawrence has had injuries the past 2 seasons, but it's like when they blew that game. When they lost in the playoffs divisional round 2 years ago and collapsed down the stretch last year when Lawrence got hurt, and then Lawrence also hurt again this year. Do you blame the injuries? Do you blame the coaching? Do you blame the player himself? Trevor Lawrence has not developed like everyone anticipated he would. He's not a top 5 quarterback. I don't even think he's top 10, right? That, for me, is a big reason Doug Peterson's gone. He was supposed to develop Trevor Lawrence, help him take that next step into that elite tier. Did not do it. And the way the team just faltered the back half of last season and it never seemed to recover, I think a change of leadership was certainly warranted.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see. I mean, I would think they're going to bring in an offensive-minded coach. It sounds like Ben Johnson's right now that's the top landing spot for him from what I've heard. And it makes sense because they kind of want to get the most out of Trevor Lawrence. And, they would like to try to unlock that guy that was touted as a generational talent that really has not lived up to it. Like, I'm not going to say he's been bad, but, he's still the best quarterback from that draft class, which has been a horrific class looking back at it. But
yeah, dude, I know. And for the Jags, like I've seen rumors that they're going to throw the bag at Ben Johnson and Ben Johnson's eyeing that job. And I kind of like the Jags job. Like they're going to rebuild their stadium. Like Shad Khan, it seems to be an involved owner, but you have a quarterback. You have a lot of pieces on the line. Like I love their pass rushing duo of Trayvon Walker, back-to-back double-digit sack seasons. That's huge after his rookie year where he started off a little slow. Josh Allen Hines, obviously a beast. You do have Brian Thomas Jr. at receiver. You have some pieces along the offensive line. Still need to address the offensive line. They need more, but you have some pieces there. You have talent in some premium positions. Tyson Campbell's a stud corner when he's healthy. He's just never healthy. Like in premium positions, you do have some guys, and you have an owner that's willing to spend, and you have this new stadium. You're in Florida. Like, I don't think the Jags job is a bad job, but a lot of people in the league were shocked that Trent Baalke, the GM, kept his job. And this is a situation where, I'm sure we'll talk about the Giants at some point and how they kept Daboll and Shane. But what I didn't want to have happen was fire Daboll and keep Shane, because it's way more difficult to bring in a head coach when that GM's already established. It's better to bring in two guys together. So I think it could make it more difficult for the Jags to land their desired target. But then again, Shad Khan could just throw a shit ton of money at Ben Johnson. It doesn't matter, and they get him. You know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see. I still think they're going to target an offensive-minded coach to try to get Trevor to that next step.
Yeah, for sure. And then the final firing, Gerard Mayo out as the Patriots coach. And now that actually the stat I was going to say is that it's now 5 years in a row where we have seen a coach go one and done. So I thought that was very interesting.
Wow.
And it kind of speaks to how the patience of a lot of these owners are starting to wear out over the past, decade. And I believe that's now 10 or 11 in the past 10 years. So something that, you didn't used to see that now is becoming a very common theme in the NFL. And I was saying before with Antonio Pierce, I don't know if you consider that as a one and done since he was the interim head coach last year.
I think technically not, but I would almost consider it. I would almost consider it that, but technically I don't think it is. And with Mayo, it's certainly not fair. It's like the Patriots didn't spend much off season. Like they had a rookie quarterback. You walked in the season, you're starting Jacoby Brissett. The team is just so depleted of talent. Like that's clearly the worst offense in football from a personnel standpoint. If you put every team fully healthy, if you put every offense on the field, I think that's the worst personnel-wise. They do have the quarterback, though. Drake May looks really good for what he had around him. But, I don't know. Mayo just didn't seem like he was ready for that big of a step,
No, not at all. It'll definitely be interesting to see who they bring in. I mean, obviously, it sounds like Vrabel would be the top
he's interviewing
guy
on Thursday. So
it's just so weird, though, because everyone's like, oh, he's going there. But it's like they could have had him last year if they wanted him, no? I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that and I'm completely missing it.
No, the thing was Robert Kraft promised Gerard Mayo that he'd be the coach in waiting once Belichick was gone, because Mayo was going to go somewhere else, I think, to be a DC. And Kraft did not want to see him leave. So that's why Mayo stayed for a couple years, because he knew he was the head coach in waiting, where it's like you already made that promise to him, and they have a great relationship. Like Mayo was obviously a player for that organization for a long time. So he honored his word. But now it's like Vrabel's sitting right there. Apparently Vrabel's dream job is the Pats, also played for the Pats. So for a guy like Vrabel that's had success in the league and he's staring you right in the face, I think it's a warranted move. Although it's not fair to Gerard Mayo. They only got 1 year with a very depleted roster.
I'm sure some team will give him a job as a DC somewhere. Or
I hope Antonio Pierce becomes the Giants DC. That'd be cool. I'd love to see that. I think it's certainly plausible that Antonio Pierce gets hired.
Yeah. And then Rand Carthen out as the Titans GM. One of only two GM firings. The other was the Jets mid-season with Joe Douglas. But definitely interesting to me because, to keep Brian Callahan, which, obviously he was only in his year one. And, that was one where I thought could definitely get fired too, just because, it was kind of I expected more for the Titans because you talked about how many veterans they brought in. They obviously ended up as the worst team in the league. So it's weird to me in the sense that you're getting rid of your GM. You're now bringing in a new GM where if the team sucks next year, that GM's going to be like, well, it's not my head coach. This is not the personnel I brought in.
You're not
so
matching timelines. It gets dicey.
You're not matching timelines, but technically, the Saints, Bears, Raiders, Pats, and Jags aren't doing that either because they now are getting new head coaches where the GMs, if they have another bad year, the head coach can be like, well, this isn't the personnel I brought in. So I've always been under the belief that, you should always try to pair the head coach and GM at the same time, or at the very least, if you have a young quarterback. So like in this case, I guess the only team, the Bears would be doing not the best service because, you're going to have Caleb there with a new head coach and then already in year two. And then potentially by year three, he's got a whole new GM who doesn't even want him.
If the Bears don't make the playoffs next year, I could see Ryan Poles certainly getting fired.
I would think so. I mean, his name is definitely, at the forefront. But I'm happy with kind of what the Jets are doing in the sense that, new head coach, new GM, pair them together, and, they can go get their quarterback and, pick apart the roster, how they envision it together. But yeah, very interesting with the Titans because I can't imagine that GM, like after 1 year, is going to, it's another failure for the Titans next year, which I would expect. A lot of growing pains. Brian Callahan probably won't last.
Yeah, it'll be tough. I mean, they're going to take a quarterback at one, and Shedeur is definitely more ready to play now, but all the rumors are swirling that the Titans are in love with Cam Ward. And it's like when you're picking first, what's the point of a smokescreen, right? Like you have the first pick now. So Cam Ward is definitely more raw, where you can have some more growing pains next year. Like I think he needs time to like sit and learn. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to bring in a vet as well.
Jim Rodgers, go ahead. See ya.
There's no way Rodgers. I think Rodgers going to retire, honestly. But
yeah, we shall see. So next up, Tyreek Hill. Just, I don't know if you've seen all this stuff, but he's tweeting.
I'm out.
Yeah.
He like cropped his face on AB. I don't know what that is. It's so weird because you didn't hear anything all season. And right after the last game, Tyreek Hill's like, yeah, I got to do what's best for me. Like, I'm out of here. I think he was just frustrated with this season because he seemed pretty happy last year, right? When he went nuclear. Now this season, the offense takes a step back. Tua has more injuries. Maybe he's like, you know what? I love Tua, but I can't count on my guy to stay healthy. And we've seen his production just nosedive off a cliff when he doesn't have Tua in the lineup. And he's like, you know what? Maybe I need to go to another playoff caliber team where the quarterback is more reliable.
Yeah, and I know this actually was the first year, I believe, in his career he hasn't made the playoffs. So that's definitely another reason for frustration.
That's a good point.
It's definitely going to be an interesting name to see if he does, request a trade and get traded. But we can get
he'd probably fetch a third, I think, maybe a second.
I would think, yeah.
It's a big contract, very big contract. It'd be tough to slot that in,
Yeah, but we'll get into more of like where the Dolphins go from here in a little bit. And then finally, big blow for the Packers. Christian Watson suffered a season-ending knee injury.
Yeah,
it's very
that was
unfortunate.
bothering him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting carted off. Obviously Jordan Love got banged up as well with the elbow. He'll be fine. He said that they already clinched the playoffs, so that was more precautionary. But losing Watson's really going to hurt this team because he was their burner down the field. So now you're asking a lot more, like Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs.
Tavian Wicks.
Yeah, Wicks.
Bo Melton,
Heath as well. The tight ends between Kraft and Musgrave. It's just asking a lot more out of everybody. I don't know, if they really have any of those wide receivers can really step up with that downfield stretching because Watson really throughout the season was their big play guy.
100%.
Reed obviously can have the big plays as well, but he doesn't stretch the field like Watson does. So I think that's going to come back to really bite them in the ass in the playoffs. I fully believe they're a one and done. I actually think the Eagles are going to kill them this week, but we'll see.
I know. I mean, the Eagles beat them week 1 on neutral site, and I think the Eagles have gotten better. Packers are, I don't know, dude.
They've been trending down to me recently.
I know. Like, they're not, I know they're like Their record's not bad. It's not like they're on a big losing streak or anything.
Haven't beaten anybody though.
They're just kind of inconsistent, and it's tough. Like you lose a guy like Christian Watson, who, he's not a world beater, but he provides a skill that no one else in your receiver room has. Yeah. Like his size and speed and ability to get downfield is very valuable when you have a quarterback like Jordan Love that can push the ball downfield. So missing that against a defense like the Eagles, where that's a much improved secondary. I think they actually had the number 1 passing defense in football the last time I saw that a couple weeks ago. So they're certainly finished top 5. You're asking for a lot, and it's going to be a big Josh Jacobs game, I think, if the Packers are going to hang around. Problem is they need their defense to hold up so they can run the ball.
Yeah, no, I mean it'll be interesting. And obviously with that game that I thought was going to be way better, but the Vikings and Lions game Sunday Night Football.
Don't worry, dude. I lost like almost every bet besides the wheel. Let's go the wheel. Jameer Gibbs,
Oh yeah,
the guy who scored 4 touchdowns. I lost almost every bet because I didn't take Gibbs to score because he was minus 300, and it's like he's the only dude. I mean, I guess the Packers got a garbage time, but Gibbs had 4 tutties. Like that was crazy. And then I also teased the Lions and the over, and like the Vikings just couldn't carry their weight. I can't believe the Lions defense, which has been struggling with all the injuries, like this Minnesota team with 14 wins couldn't put together. Too many field goals.
Wasn't the over under like 56 or something?
Yeah, I teased it down to 49.5.
Yeah, well, I know Minnesota, they went for it twice on 4th down and didn't convert in the red zone, so that hurts, and you miss a kick, so a lot of missed opportunities there. But I mean, overall, not only that, but it just had such a big impact because now the Lions, the team that needed it more, I would say, just with all the injuries, now get a week off, and then they get to play the lower seed. Well, Minnesota's now got to go, out to LA to play the Rams, who actually beat you earlier in the season. And I believe that game was in LA as well. Don't quote me on it. But regardless, the Rams beat them by 10 points earlier in the year. So, one of Minnesota's 3 losses came to them. So,
and the Rams just sat their starters. So they got a week off where Minnesota was gearing up for that big game against Detroit. So the Rams are more fresh, where I think, with Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay in the playoffs, I know we'll get into all this on Thursday, but with those 2 guys in the playoffs, they can make a run, dude. The Rams are always a dangerous team. They don't have the sexiest names on paper on the defensive side of the ball, but they've drafted so well on that side where like their defense can hold their own, particularly on the D-line. Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, their 2 rooks, have been awesome. And then Kobe Turner they took last year,
I'm not going to lie, though. Like, yeah, it was probably smart to rest your guys for the first round, but like being the 3 seed this year, like the way with how good the NFC is, like there's a chance that Tampa Bay, it could work out that they're playing a home playoff game every game. Like there's a chance that, the way it could work out is if Green Bay somehow upsets Philadelphia, then you have a home playoff game in round 2. And if somebody knocks off the Lions, who obviously we see how banged up they are on defense, like there's a chance Tampa Bay has home playoffs throughout the whole entire thing. So to me, the difference between the 3 and 4 is crazy, like that you would give that up with how deep the NFC is.
Yeah. No,
would that actually shock you if the Eagles got bounced by the Packers and then the Lions, get bounced in the second round?
It wouldn't shock me. I mean, the Packers, they beat them last year, right? Not mistaken.
Who?
No, the Packers beat the Cowboys.
Yeah, the Bucks beat the Eagles.
The Bucks beat the Eagles. That's right. That's right. Yeah. But, we've seen Jalen Hurts lay an egg in the playoffs. We've also seen him lead a team to the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I think the Eagles are a very, very scary team now. I think it's going to be probably Detroit, Philadelphia. I'm just really happy Detroit won that game because, 1, my preseason Super Bowl prediction was Detroit over Kansas City. 2, I still got those future bets, baby. Chiefs, Lions, Super Bowl. I can hedge out and make a lot of money regardless if they just meet up. Because
why? What were the odds on that?
I did. They're both free bets, so I can't lose anything. But I had a $100 free bet on Chiefs to beat the Lions at plus 4,000, so I'd win $4,000. And then I put a $15 free bet. I think this was plus 6,000 odds to win like 750 on Detroit to beat Kansas City. So I can hedge out no matter what, where I'm gonna make like 2.7 if Kansas City, which I will 100% do, because then it's like I'm not gonna sweat out and like root for the Chiefs for the difference. Like let me just hedge out, take my money, and just enjoy the game, and be good to go. Use that money for Super Bowl boxes. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're going to the game? No, I know
Props,
you're talking about the other thing. Getting some box seats, buddy. There you go.
No.
Might need to, to throw that down, a couple more times. What would they run you like $20,000 probably for box seats?
Yeah, maybe if I threw it, maybe if I had $1,000 free bet and I placed it, and maybe go watch in person, that'd be cool. But yeah, I'm just happy both my squads that I have for the futures. I mean, I also had some Bengals futures, which kind of bums me out. They didn't sneak in because they are a dangerous team. Although there's no chance to get out of the AFC this year with their defense, but they're a fun team to watch. Lost that one, but my preseason prediction, Lions Chiefs, where sneak preview for Thursday's pod. What's my Super Bowl going to be? What I picked preseason.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would stick with it, but we'll get into that on Thursday.
1 versus 1. It's going to look chalky, but I predicted it preseason, so I'm going to stick. It's chalk now. Was it chalk? It was kind of chalk before the season.
Yes, it was. I think those are the 2 top teams. What?
It was. Hey, they got the 1 seeds. You know what I mean?
I mean, hey, impressive in its own right. But yeah, let's get into some of the questions. Let's get Mr. Drock in here.
We're 25 minutes in. We haven't even seen Drock's face yet.
Now you get to see his face. What's up, my handsome young gentleman?
Yo, you sound great. New headset.
It does.
Whoa. I've had this headset. Have this headset for a while now.
Oh, okay. Really?
Yeah. When can I watch you stream Fortnite?
Yeah, no, I'm not a good Fortnite player. Drock would like to make a formal announcement to all of his fans out there. He was very off this season. Yeah, he took some weeks where he wasn't recording his Drock's Lock, but he has a special announcement to make. Drock will be giving away a plus 300 play that's almost going to be guaranteed a lock for the playoffs.
Let's go!
Plus 300 guaranteed. Throw the rent on it. It's going to hit. Let's get into the questions.
All right, who's on Drock's fantasy team that snuck into the playoffs?
Josh Allen.
2 touchdowns.
Buffalo.
My fantasy team went off last week. All right, so let's dive into these questions. First question tonight is coming from Nick Rishol. Haven't seen this guy's name up here. Let's go. Giants have a decent roster for 2-12. Is it the coaches, GM, or owner? He says, I think Mara should sell the team and fire everybody.
Yeah, these questions I know were submitted a little while ago. We just kind of missed out on these the past couple weeks, but this is Garrett's boy, so the question still plays.
The question still plays. So 3-14. Mara's not going to sell the team. Not going to happen, unfortunately. But I knew the Giants would come up, right? So I get to give my little spiel now. I am honestly numb to the point where I didn't care if they fired everybody or they kept them. I just didn't want to keep Shane and fire Daboll. And then it's like your roster still sucks next year and you're firing Shane. You have a coach in place. You need a new GM and just that whole little mix up, right? So keep them both. Give them another year. See what they can do at quarterback or fire them both and just retool, restart. I'm okay. I'm content with them keeping them. We'll see. I mean, clearly the pressure's on. I don't like John Mara's comments that he was making. He's basically saying he wasn't saying it's playoff or bust, but he almost like hinted at it where it's like, if I don't see significant improvement, like these guys are gone. And what that does is next season, if the Giants start 1-2 or 1-3, everyone's seat is going to get hot. And you're going to feel a lot more tension and pressure in those meeting rooms week in and week out. Right now, the schedule is just released for next season. Based off 2024 winning percentages, the Giants have the most difficult schedule in football. Dude, their home schedule is absurd. They have the NFC North, right? And the AFC West. So 3 teams made it to the playoffs from the NFC North this year. 3 teams made it from the AFC West. That's what they got next year. It looks like the Giants are most likely going to have another rough year. And then I think Shane and Daboll are both gone. And then they retool next offseason. That would be my best guess of what happens. But honestly, yeah, it was a terrible season. It's the least excited I've been about watching Giants football my entire life. And it's my favorite thing in the world to do. So very frustrating, but I think next offseason, they will fire everybody.
Yeah, I would say their seats already are hot. I don't think that them starting 1-3 would make it hot all of a sudden.
No, it is hot. It is hot. Yeah, of course.
I fully think it's a mistake to bring them back. I haven't watched every Giants game like moment for moment, but just watching the game against the Eagles, like the whole way Daboll coached it just said this is not the guy. And I know you can't take a ton away from a Week 18 game, but he's coaching it so conservative, and it's like, dude, like, what do you have to lose? The season's over. Like, you should be taking all the risks possible. Like, you shouldn't be punting. You shouldn't be settling for field goals. Like, when it's like 4th and manageable, like, it's like the season's over. Like, go for it. Try to go get a win. And it's just like, he's just coaching like a guy that's lost the locker room completely. So, I mean, obviously they got the big win against the Colts, which nobody expected. So I guess you can't say for sure that he lost the locker room, but I wasn't impressed with him. I think they should have cleaned house and started over because honestly, let's be honest, like taking aside the schedule, like that roster won't be able to compete next year. So you're basically just setting your franchise back another year because you're probably going to clean house after next year, assuming all goes as expected. So I would have just ripped the Band-Aid off this year, cleaned house, started to rebuild with a new quarterback, a new GM, and a new head coach. Because if you do draft a quarterback and it doesn't go as planned and Mara is pissed off and fires him, now you're setting that quarterback up for failure because you're bringing in a new head coach in year 2, which means a new playbook. And it's rare that it actually works out because that's the story of my Jets, bringing in a rookie quarterback and he's got a new coach and a new play caller in year 2. It never works out.
Except for Bryce Young, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Took him a while, but Bryce Young figured it out in the back half of the season. But yeah, I mean, certainly more often than not, you bring in a new coach in year 2, a new system, it does stunt the growth of that young quarterback. And there's the only way that this Giants team competes next year is if the quarterback they get at 3, whoever's left of Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, because one of them is going to go at least before him. The only way they compete is if that quarterback turns out to be a stud. And all these draft pundits were wrong, ranking him way behind the quarterbacks from last year. Now, all those quarterbacks are good, right? But if you don't play as good as Michael Penix did in his few starts, I don't see them having a winning record or anything really close to it. I don't know. Clearly the problem was there's more problems than just the quarterback. The quarterback's the main problem where you got to figure that out. And it's like we're sitting here like we were when we drafted Daniel Jones, where it's like we need a goddamn quarterback, but it's not the year to need one. They just keep screwing up when to go get their quarterback.
Yeah.
Next question, fantasy question. Is Brock Bowers the first tight end off the board next year?
No.
100%.
Not 100%, bro. What do you mean?
Look what he just did with Aiden O'Connell.
Dude, you can't
Gardner
what Trey
Minshew.
McBride did, though. I think it's, dealer's choice. You can't go wrong with either guy next year.
You can't.
You cannot. Like,
I'd
Trey
say,
McBride, they're even. They're 100% even, and I lead McBride. If I'm in that spot, I'm taking Trey McBride.
Yeah, this is the biggest argument in this podcast. It's Brock Bowers versus Trey McBride, honestly. That's what it's become.
And
they're both going to be picked. They're both 80. Their ADPs, like where they're ranked, will probably both be in the
They're going to be the top 2
20s?
tight ends. Actually,
sure.
Kittle will be close. Kittle ended up high with the tight end landscape as well. Because
yes, but it's also
we're not talking dynasty right now.
But you also like there's always that risk when you take a guy who's older like Kittle that you're going to start to see that decline. Any year,
no, I know.
I'm just saying increases where
he'll probably fall at 3.
Bowers and McBride ascending. I think those 2 will be the top 2. I think Kittle will be 3. I think you could see like Laporta 4 maybe, even though he started off slow, but Laporta's picked it up the back half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going McBride, but you can't go wrong with Bowers. It really will depend because you would imagine Kyler will be back with the Cardinals. Seems like
maybe
they're not going to make a lot of changes.
Maybe not.
The offseason will be very telling. Who will be the Raiders quarterback next year? To be determined.
Doesn't matter. Brock Bowers is a stud. Doesn't matter who plays quarterback.
That's true. And then, who's their play caller as well. I don't know. It'll be interesting, but I don't think you can go wrong with either choice. I think, what would end up settling it one way or the other is if one of the others to get injured would be my takeaway from it.
All right, Nick is also looking for a playoff parlay from the Around the Fell crew. I love that idea. I think we should totally run one.
Yeah, we'll run one.
And he's got a segment or punishment idea, and it's find Garrett and make him get in a dog cage and throw shit at him. No reason, just for fun. Thanks,
yeah,
Nick.
we could work that out.
Yeah, I'm sure G would be fine with that.
Yeah, he's been begging to do a punishment, so I'm sure he would do that for fun.
Yeah. All right, let's slide to Joe Parisi. Let's go. That's how you spell
Nice.
That's how you say his
Yeah,
last
he was
name,
at the
right?
golf outing.
Yep.
Hey, act like you own it, Dave.
Yeah, I think, I've seen him once or twice. All right, first question. Should have Neighbors and Brian Thomas been drafted earlier?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, Neighbors and Brian Thomas both could have been drafted at number 4 over Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that's pretty apparent after the rookie seasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. Like, Neighbors, I feel like is still in a good spot because going off the college tape, like, Marv was always going to go before him. I would say Brian Thomas definitely should have been drafted earlier looking at it. I mean, Neighbors still went 6. He was still considered like that top 3 echelon, but like Brian Thomas was considered like not in the same tier as these guys. And like clearly, like right now, I would say it's not clear, but I would say right now after year 1, I would say most people are considering him the number 1 wide receiver out of all of them. But it does seem like those are the top 2. Or most
things I see have Neighbors 1. Most people I see for dynasty purposes, so this is strictly fantasy football, not real football, but for dynasty, they'd rather have Neighbors than Thomas. But they are the 1-2. You can't go wrong. You could pick your order, Neighbors and Thomas. They're both studs.
Yeah, it really, I feel like it really comes down to who is the future quarterback for the Giants, because if they get someone that's real good and ends up working out, it could be really good for Neighbors. Like where at least like Brian Thomas is going to have Trevor Lawrence, which obviously isn't anything great, but I think he can continue to grow with him. Where Neighbors, will he hit his full ceiling, will definitely depend on the quarterback play. Because if it's with Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock again, like he can still have a great year, but he's not going to hit his full potential. So we'll see. But yeah, I would definitely say Brian Thomas should have gone sooner than he did. But then again, like a guy like a Dunze, like it's hard to fully be out on him because we were out on JSN last year because he was the number 3 wide receiver. And then in year 2, he exploded where
the Shane Waldron effect.
Kind of, but also like, I mean, look who's in front of him as well. Like he had Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Keenan Allen's going to be gone, and DJ Moore like will probably fall into more of the 2 roles. So I just think next year, like he's going to come onto the scene more. So I'm not out on him yet either.
No, I'm not either, for sure. I mean, yeah, right now the Bears should have taken Brian Thomas at 9 over O'Dunes, but I'm not out on O'Dunes. I think next year his ADP will be a lot lower, and I think it's a great buy low when you do.
Oh yeah, I'm 100% buying him low in Dynasty now that I talked myself into it.
Yeah. Joe is also looking to see a Christmas sleigh. We'll get you one of those in 2025.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Some of these questions are old.
I gotta read this though. And he said, "Go to a Jets or Giants game and try to enjoy it." Well, we aren't playing in the playoffs. So. I couldn't even go to the last week.
Reagan did that. Well, week 17, you did that in the cold. So
I did, baby. I'm a true.
Yeah,
fan.
He submitted that question before, and you did do that. So
I did. Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's hop to Garrett. Let's go. Graphic designer. Those thumbnails are fantastic. First question Garrett's got. It feels like the Ravens are going to get slept on right now. Everyone seems to be locking in Chiefs and Bills in for the AFC Championship. The Ravens smashed the Bills already this season. Do you think they could do it again in the playoffs?
Well, I know this question was obviously a couple weeks ago before the Ravens' past couple primetime games, but yeah, I do feel like more people are coming around on them now. I would say, you still have to give the Chiefs their respect until one of these teams proves that they can beat them. There's no reason to believe that they will, because obviously Mahomes has handled the Ravens and the Bills every time they've played in the playoffs. So, obviously coming into this playoffs, Josh Allen and the Bills and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have the most to prove on the AFC side. So, one of those 2 teams has to get it done. But I would definitely say the way the Ravens have looked the past couple of weeks, they do seem like the hottest team in the AFC to me right now.
Yeah, Baltimore's firing on all cylinders right now. And, I don't think they're getting slept on anymore after their performances the last couple of weeks. They have just blowout potential. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they just completely rolled this weekend and, they get a matchup with Buffalo. And I think it's going to be a ticket to who gets to see Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. And it seems like year after year, it's, this is the Ravens' year, this is the Bills' year, and the Chiefs just take care of them. So, I for my bets and for my preseason pick, I hope the Chiefs all take care of them again. But it's getting to that point where for Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, you are considered the number 2 and number 3 quarterbacks in football. Pick your order, right? At some point, you got to get over the hump and beat Patrick Mahomes. At some point, you got to do it. It can't be a full another offseason of, oh, Lamar's great, Josh is great. They go off in the regular season, but they fell short again. Unfortunately, that's the path I see.
All right, let's hop to Walmart now. First question of the night. Playoff time, baby, in all caps and 2 exclamation points. Come on, let's go. Outside of Washington, what other teams can be considered this year as a success already by making it into the playoffs?
Yeah, Broncos,
Chargers.
Yeah, I think I would say the Vikings. And the main reason with the Vikings is like most people actually had them finishing 4th in the division. Even if it was even before the JJ McCarthy news, it seemed like they were kind of in a rebuild phase and they went out and won 14 games. I know at this point, most Vikings fans are going to be like, well, we won 14 games. Like, it's Super Bowl now. But I would say coming into the year, based off of where they finished, a lot of people didn't even thought they would be like, a bottom 5 team potentially. So I view the Vikings in that same breath as well.
Yeah, it's those teams. I mean, other than that, it's familiar faces. Houston's made it past couple years. Pittsburgh, even though they never do anything, they still got in. Of course, Baltimore, Buffalo, Philadelphia, Green Bay, you expected those. Tampa Bay, I mean, that division was wide open. You know what I mean? Like, they've won it 3 years in a row prior, so kind of what you expect in Tampa Bay. The Rams, like, they were in it last year. You kind of expect it from Sean McVay, even though we didn't pick it. I know I didn't pick it for them to make the playoffs, but they still did. It's not a total shock that they made it. So I agree. It's definitely the Commanders. Denver, just because that cap situation was terrible from Russell Wilson, and they took Bo Nix at 12, and everyone said they're reaching for Bo Nix, and Bo Nix is a dog. And, they had a phenomenal season. Sean Payton just proved yet again why he's one of the top head coaches in football. And then for the Chargers, in Harbaugh's first season, they let go of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and they're like, oh, this offense is going to be terrible. Like, they got nothing around Herbert. Well, Herbert's that guy. Ladd McConkey's that guy. That offensive line has got some dudes, So for them to turn it around, even more so on the defensive side of the ball, where you had a defensive coach in Brandon Staley, but the way their defense just, boom, just like that, because it always had the talent. So for the Chargers in Harbaugh year 1 to make the playoffs, when now they get to retool the roster how they see fit, I mean, I think the Chargers are going to be a staple in the playoffs for years to come.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, last question for Walmart. Where should Scary Terry get drafted in next year's redraft league?
I think he's a fine 3rd or 4th round pick. Right? I wouldn't take him in the 3rd or 4th, I think. I mean, I'm trying to think of who, like, Devon Achane was going the 3rd or 4th this year, like, after the year that he had. I kind of, like, it's hard to, like, have in your mind, like, 35, 40 players and where you'd rank them, but I think round 3 or 4 is a sweet spot.
I think it depends on your format versus half full. That definitely factors in, but I would say even late 2nd. I mean, the guy was just insanely consistent this year, and it's never a bad thing to get that kind of consistency where you have, because I know he finished as a top 12 receiver. I believe he was closer to the top half. I don't have the rankings in front of me, but he was just consistent, like 15 points a week for full point PPR. He was never putting up like the Jamar Chase boom games, but he also was not busting at all. He was just consistent, especially down the stretch. And you would imagine with Jaden getting better, like as he progresses next year, it's only going to be better for Terry and his production.
Yeah. I mean, Terry was wide receiver 8. He had 5 games of at least 100 yards. So that's pretty solid. Touchdown wise, he was clearly Jaden's number 1 guy. And it also depends on what the Commanders do. Like, I mean, Terry had 12 touchdowns, which is his career high by 5. So, will that follow into next year? To be determined. And you also look at that receiver room outside of Terry, and you're like, really not a lot there. So I'd imagine the Commanders will add more weapons around him. But, I mean, clearly for a young quarterback, like Terry's that dude for him.
All right. Well, Drock's got 2 more questions for you guys. Came up with it all by himself. Let's get into it. Yeah, these are great questions. First question. Should the Bengals blow it up, or should they go out and find improvements considering they didn't make the playoffs?
They got to improve that defense, man. They got to Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Well, one, they should have paid Jamar Chase last offseason because now they're going to have to give him an insane amount of money after the Triple Crown. They need to get Jamar Chase and T. Higgins back in that building. They want to be there. Joe Burrow wants them. Joe Burrow did not want Lou Anarumo fired as DC. They let go all of their prime defensive talent outside of Trey Hendrickson. They're clearly missing Jesse Bates in the back end. He was a leader of that back end. They need to add so much talent to the defensive side of the ball. They have to attack it during the draft because you don't have the cap space. You got to pay Chase. You got to pay Higgins, right? But no, they shouldn't blow it up. You have a top 5 quarterback in Joe Burrow where if he's healthy, just get off to a hotter start in the beginning of the season, man. Like how many years do we have to say this, man? Out of the gates, they need to start rolling and stacking wins so they're not playing from behind and trying to play catch up all season. But no, they have too many good players in their primes to just blow it up.
Yeah, no, that's note to self. Don't take the Bengals in Survivor week 1 through 3. But yeah, no, obviously, I wouldn't say blow it up. I mean, you'd like to see him to hit a refresh. I actually would be okay with them letting T. Higgins walk and allocating some of that money for the defense. I know Joe Burrow wants him, but if you decide to pay T. Higgins and you pay Jamar Chase and all these guys, the defense still is not getting fixed. So you need to put money towards that defense. And obviously pick 17, like you could lock it in. That's going to be a defensive player, but that still will not solve all those defensive issues. So I would let T. Higgins walk and put that money towards a defensive player or two.
Now, should the Falcons blow it up or go out and find improvements?
They got to improve, man. You're not blowing anything up. Kirk Cousins is going to be gone. You got Michael Penix, a young quarterback that showed some flashes, like a little inconsistent, but the dude's got an arm, an absolute cannon, right? So I love their offense. Their offensive line is great. The weapons that you have around them, like Darnell Mooney was a great find as your number 2 this year. You could still add another receiver, I think, but Drake London, I mean, look at that game he just had this past weekend. Dog. Building a great rapport with Penix already. Bijan Robinson's a top 5, probably top 3 running back in football. You have the pieces on offense. You got to figure out the defense. It's time to address pass rush. Finally, it feels like every year we do a mock draft, and it's like Falcons, pass rusher, they need it, and they never take one. You got to address the pass rush. You got to add some more pieces to the back end of that defense, but it wouldn't shock me at all if the Falcons won the NFC South next year.
I'm actually was going to say the opposite because you're not really going to blow it up, but the Kirk Cousins contract really does, hurt this team. But I wouldn't be shocked if they finish dead last in the NFC South next year, because we're putting a lot of faith in Michael Penix, and it was a small sample size. He definitely showed, he was better than Kirk Cousins, but to act like he's just going to fix it all next year is still to be seen. So if it doesn't work out and he is not the guy, then they're screwed because you have all that money tied up to Kirk Cousins and you just took a prime pick on a quarterback and neither guy was the answer. So if that is a future, which could be the future for the Falcons, they're really in trouble where they will be blowing up the team completely next year. So, and Raheem Morris was a guy that, obviously kept his job, but he could have been fired even after this year. It was a big disappointment. So, he's a guy that'll be in the hot seat real quick next year if they start out of the gate slow, because it's a very wide open division. But if you struggle in the worst division in football next year, he's 100% gone. And they could be a team drafting a quarterback in 2026 if it doesn't go well.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see that path. I think Penix has shown enough where, I mean, dude, they finished,
though.
But they finished 8-9, and for
in the worst division in football.
Yes, but for a 6-game stretch, Kirk Cousins threw like one touchdown and 9 picks. He was terrible. And their contract, they set it up where there's an out after year 2, where there's not a ton of dead money. Where yes, it's going to strap them next year. They're not going to be able to add as much talent as they should. But after that, that contract's not going to be that much of a burden on their books.
Yeah, they just have to. I mean, at this point, you just have to hope Penix works out.
And also, I think there's no way the Falcons are worse than the Saints next year. The Saints are like negative. They're like negative 30 or negative 40 million in cap debt, and they have Derek Carr and Spencer Rattler. They're rolling out Spencer Rattler next year, dude. They're rolling out Spencer Rattler for a full season. Don't doubt the Rat Man. Do not doubt the Rat Man. I'm sorry. I'm going to put my faith in Michael Penix in that offense over the Rat Man in that offense.
And now, should the Dolphins blow it up, or should they go out and find improvements?
Miami's in a tough spot. This is a tough one, man, because Tyreek Hill wants out. Problem with the Dolphins, they're just so soft up front. Tua can't stay healthy. where like that's always, and you already paid him, but that's always in the back of your mind is like, we were saying it before the season, one more concussion, you never know. He got another concussion. Here we are in the offseason, one more concussion. You know what I mean? It's just, you can't blow it up though, because you have so much money invested in veteran players. Like, I don't know. They do have some, like Chop Robinson is a really nice player from this year. Like, I do like some pieces that they have, but I mean, Devon Achane, Jalen Waddle, like you do have some young building blocks, but I don't know, dude. Dolphins are a really tough spot.
Yeah, my gut says blow it up. Obviously you can't get rid of Tua, but I would say, try to get a lot of those bigger veteran contracts off the book and try to retool. Like maybe take a year where you are one of the, bottom teams, but get all those big contracts off. See if you can run it back in 2 years from now, build around Tua with a whole new thing. Because maybe even a new coach. Because obviously, they're bringing Chris Greer, the GM, back. You're bringing Mike McDaniel back. So they're giving them another chance. But if they start off slow next year and it's injury riddled with Tua, you'd assume they're cleaning house. And then, they'll bring in a new coach. And that new coach would probably be under the perspective that Tua still will be his quarterback. So I think you blow it up. I just can't see with how deep the AFC is that this team will ever be able to compete. And it's still like, even if they are able to compete in the regular season, like you have to get a 1 seed because it's still, they haven't proven that they can win in the cold temperatures come playoff time. So
look at the teams that are going to run the AFC, Reagan. Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore, all cold city teams.
Yeah. And look at some of the, like Pittsburgh's in there,
yeah, I'm not worried about Pittsburgh, dude.
You would imagine
Mike Tomlin's
the Bengals
special.
will be better. No, I'm just saying though, like teams that could end up being the higher seed that they'd run into. The Bengals are like, I don't know. I would blow it up. That's what I think for the Dolphins.
All right, now out of the open head coaching jobs that are available, which coach is going to be most desirable to be a part of? Let's go with the Jets first.
Yeah, so obviously, we've interviewed a lot of different guys, and I say we because I'm a part of the franchise. But no, jokes aside, I would love Mike Vrabel, but, Rex Ryan thinks it's going to be him. He said he's 100% getting the job, but I actually am okay with that. Go back to the glory days. The last time we were relevant was with him, and, something's to be said to bringing a rookie quarterback to the AFC Championship in year 1 and then going back the following year. Definitely speaks to the volume of him as a head coach. And, the New York market's tough. So the Jets are going to need a guy that can handle that and is not going to be a baby and stuff. And he definitely has the personality to handle that. So for me, that's my top guy right now would be Rex Ryan, because I'm assuming Vrabel will go to the Patriots.
Yeah, Vrabel's not going to go to the Jets, I don't think. I think Vrabel's going to go to the Pats. Ben Johnson, they're not even interviewing him. He just wasn't interested in the job, I guess. So, I mean, I think the Jets need a guy that's going to set the culture, right? And Rex Ryan, I think, is your number one guy in that department, honestly. And you want someone that wants to be there and really cares about the organization. And again, Rex Ryan fits the bill. So I think Rex Ryan would be a great fit for the Jets.
Now, what about the Pats?
Pats is a good one because I think this is a really, really desirable job. When you have Drake May, when you have $130 million in cap space, you could build this thing how you want right out of the get-go with the hardest thing to find already in place. I got to think it's going to be an offensive guy. I think Liam Cohen is a really good choice for the Pats.
Oh, you don't think it's Vrabel?
Oh, no, I do think it's Vrabel, but, I think it will be Vrabel, but I would really like an offensive coach. But it just seems like it will be Vrabel.
I mean, it could be Ben Johnson, too. I mean,
it could be Ben Johnson. It just seems like it's going to be Vrabel, but like I would love to see an offensive coach with Drake May.
Yeah. Yeah. No, one I meant to say before, Aaron Glenn for the Jets as well. The Lions DC. I forgot to say him, but
yeah, he's
I would like him as well.
Right now. I think he'll get the Saints job.
Speaking of the Saints, how about the Saints?
I think Aaron Glenn kind of. I believe he's been in the building there before, correct?
Yeah.
As a player, he has ties to New Orleans, so I could see that being a job for him. In my opinion, this is the worst job though to get.
Well, yeah, because I mean they're in cap hell. They don't really have a quarterback lined up. Yeah, he actually was a player for the Jets for a while, and then he had played a little bit on the Jags and the Saints, but he also was a D-backs coach for the Saints for 4 years. So that's why you think he has ties to the Jets and the Saints. That's why I would think those would be two teams that would are definitely getting interviews with him. But yeah, I would think, like you said, this is the least desirable for a lot of factors. No cap space, no definite quarterback next year. So going to be rough. And it's tough because, like, you're going into a bad situation and it's probably not going to work out. And, there's a chance you go one and done with this team.
How about them Raiders?
This one's the toughest for me. I have no clue who would get the Raiders job. Like, what do you think?
Well, I think they might go offensive coach this time around because, they've had some talent on defense, but it seems like right now the way they're building it, they're starting to piece together some weapons. You would think they're going to draft a quarterback in the draft, whether they trade up or maybe even trade for JJ McCarthy. I would think they want to pair him with an offensive mind. So I could see them going the offensive route. I actually wouldn't be shocked if they even go to the college game, because there hasn't been a lot of big college names talked about, but I feel like every year, there's that one college name that gets thrown in last minute.
Sarkisian is the guy that I saw some rumors with, but I doubt he leaves Texas, dude. He's got Arch Manning next year and a loaded roster, there's no way he's going to leave while he's got Arch Manning there. Probably the best quarterback prospect and one of the best in a long time.
Yeah, and obviously, Gruden, I still think there's a chance he comes out. A sleeper name for me would be Cliff Kingsbury.
I was going to say Cliff is a sleeper for Chicago.
Oh, I think he's a sleeper for Vegas. I think a lot of teams will give him a look the way he's turned things around. Arthur Smith, I know another name that's been thrown around for teams, but I don't know why you'd want to do it because the Steelers' offense still wasn't anything crazy impressive this year.
Yeah, it's also tough for the Raiders because they just fired Pierce a couple hours ago, so we don't have as much information on who they're eyeing, who they're bringing in for interviews.
Yeah.
And how about them Bears?
So I think all the talk has been Ben Johnson. I actually think Ben Johnson goes to the Jags. I think Cliff Kingsbury, Bears. Seeing what he's done with Jaden Daniels in year one, I think the Bears ownership would be like, come over here and do it with Caleb. You were with Caleb at USC. Come on over, do it with Caleb.
You would like them to do something like that. I feel like the Bears, just being the Bears, are going to mess it up here. I think they're going to go with a defensive coach here, and it's just not going to help Caleb at all. And it's, I think they'll go Aaron Glenn, or I think they'll go, one of these popular DC names, or they may even get a candidate that nobody's talking about right now. And it's like, what? You went out and got him?
Like Joe Judge, the Giants?
Yeah, or like
something where it's like, what?
Like an older guy that's showing he's a good coordinator, but hasn't had the most head coaching success. I could see them being after the Eagles playoff runs, Vic Fangio, come be our head coach.
Steve Spagnuolo.
Yeah, something like that, where it's these guys are good coordinators, but then they're like, you know what? We want you to come be our head coach. Actually, well, I will say, sorry, Dave. Fangio was the Bears DC back in 2015 to 2018, so he does have ties there as well.
Yeah, then he went and got the Broncos head coaching job from there.
Mm-hmm.
And last team, Jags.
I think Shad Khan gives Ben Johnson a 10-year, $80 million deal, and they get him. I think Ben Johnson will be the Jags coach.
Yeah, this one's interesting to me because, it is one of the more attractive destinations. They do have a lot of young talent there still. I mean, right now, looking at it, obviously Drake May and Caleb Williams are very attractive, but I would say, Trevor Lawrence is the most established and is still I think a good prospect, and at least you've seen him lead a team to the playoffs. So I think this will be an attractive job. I think they go offensive minded. Ben Johnson's the easy answer. I don't know. It's so tough to say because there's so many interviews going around. And speaking about the Bears, also, you guys see Mike McCarthy. Actually, they requested to interview Mike McCarthy, but the Cowboys declined it. So that makes me think he'll be going back to the Cowboys.
Yeah, well. I think he will. How do you move on from McCarthy? He won 12 games last year and the year before, and it's this year you didn't have Dak, but the team battled, And I knew when Jerry Jones, I know he loves to hear his own voice, but when he was talking to the media 2 weeks ago after they battled and got a huge win, it was he was hyping up McCarthy and saying how proud he was of the team. It's these guys are still playing hard. To win that many games with Cooper Rush, I think was pretty impressive. And then, they didn't even have CeeDee Lamb for the last game. So, and really that offense just does not have a lot of talent. Like Jerry Jones did not put Mike McCarthy in a position to succeed this year once Dak went down. Like, they need a lot of help on offense and on defense, particularly in the interior to stop the run. Like they can't stop the run to save their lives. So Jerry Jones did not do Mike McCarthy any favors this year, but the fact the team battled so much, there's no way you can move on. Plus, who are you gonna hire that's better? Like, are you guaranteed that like you'd get Ben Johnson? Like Ben Johnson hasn't been a head coach before. It just seems like I know he's probably the most creative play caller right now, and people are saying that, but McCarthy's won a Super Bowl, and you've seen him in your building for years. That continuity matters.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think they stick with him. I mean, Jerry Jones is just such a tough guy to read. To be honest,
he didn't buy an asset, he bought an occupation. You see that quote?
Yeah, and that's all I'm talking about. It's like a janitor or whatever.
I'm like, that's my dream, dude. To get so rich, I just buy a team and be the GM.
Something like that, right? I mean, hey, you can't knock him for doing that.
No.
That's all the questions tonight, boys.
All right, thank you, Dave. Or I'm sorry, Drock. Sorry.
Yeah, Drock, you did a great job tonight. Let's get this mock draft ripping, huh?
Yeah. So what we're planning on doing here is, just going off gut reaction. It's January. A lot will change between now and March. Trades will happen. But let's rattle it off. So we'll start out with the Titans here. All right, so we're back. Dave's got us set up here with the mock draft simulator. Thank you to what is this, Pro Football's mock draft website?
Yeah, Pro Football. I think it's Pro Football Network. So this is a great mock draft setup. StreamYard, this setup is really cool. I'm digging this. Reagan, can I start? Because I want you to make the decision at number 2 what the Browns do instead of me, because
Sure.
I'm going to leave a quarterback for my Giants. So
sure, go right ahead.
Number 1 overall, I would go Shedeur Sanders. What I think is going to happen is Cam Ward. Apparently, the Titans are really digging Cam Ward. He's raw as a passer, but he has a big arm. He operates really well outside the pocket when it's off script. What he needs to get better at is operating on script and going through his reads and his progressions and making throws inside the pocket and staying on time. I think he can develop into that, but it's going to take some time. And the Titans, they do have some veterans on that offense that I think will help support him, but I think it's going to be a rocky year for Tennessee regardless. But give me Cam Ward, number 1. He's at number 6, Dave. There you go.
I know you were just saying that you wanted Shedeur, but then I heard Cam Ward's speech.
Yeah, so for number 2, I will go with Shedeur Sanders for the Browns. And I'm not even doing that to piss you off. I genuinely think the Browns do go quarterback at this point. I mean, the Deshaun Watson experience is over. I mean, you see these other teams kicking the cans on their quarterbacks that they gave big money to right away. I mean, look at the Falcons. They gave up on Kirk Cousins within the first year of his deal. Deshaun Watson, it hasn't worked out in 2 years. Kevin Stefanski obviously is a good quarterback mind. I mean, you saw what he was doing with Jameis Winston and what he did with Joe Flacco last year. So it's time. You got to give up. You got to go forward. And yeah, the team probably will suck next year, but at least you're going to get Sanders some experience. Once you start getting away from some of that money, it'll go towards the future. And I can't imagine guys in that locker room are going to be like, yeah, like we want Deshaun Watson. He's our guy. Nobody's riding with him. So I'm going Sanders here. I still think the Browns could trade back, but it's January. My gut reaction at this point is they do go quarterback, and they take Shedeur Sanders.
Can't blame you for that. This is an easy pick. Travis Hunter for the Giants. And we saw it in offseason Hard Knocks when Joe Shane was talking to Shane Bowen, the DC, and he came over and he's like, we're thinking about getting Burns. But if we get Burns, we can't get a corner. We can't afford both. He understood that's the 2 biggest needs on that defense were edge and a corner. They didn't get a corner. Deonte Banks has not developed in what you hoped he would be when you took him in the first round 2 years ago. He regressed this year, which is a problem. They need a lot of help in the secondary. Travis Hunter is a stud at corner, absolutely. Also with the Giants struggling, red zone offense. They had the worst red zone offense in football this year. Travis Hunter, I think, is going to be a full-time corner and have packages on offense, 15 to 25 plays a game. 25 might be even pushing it, but we'll see. I mean, no one's seen it happen before. Travis said he's going to do it. If I believe him, he's the top player in the draft. He's an elite receiver prospect. He's an elite corner prospect. So get Travis Hunter as your number 1 corner. Move Banks to the 2. Hopefully he recovers with a new DC because I guarantee they're going to fire Shane Bowen. And have Travis Hunter and Malik Neighbors rock in the red zone, and this offense could be a lot better next year.
Yeah, for me at 4, this is a slam dunk pick for the Patriots. Last year, you go Drake May. Hey, guess what? You have a terrible receiver core around him. Well, let's go get him his future wide receiver 1, and that's Ted McMillan out of Arizona. I mean, the guy is a physical freak, 6'5", 210. Past 2 years, just dominated at Arizona State. 90 catches 2 years ago, 84 this year, going over 1,300 yards in both years, 8 touchdowns this year, 10 last year. I mean, the guy is a physical freak, so I think he'll slide right in there to the number 1. And it'll just be huge for Drake May's development. And, he may end up being the 101 in dynasty leagues as well next year.
No, that's going to be Ashton Genty, but it's fine. Number 5, easy pick for me. Will Johnson, corner out of Michigan. Dude is an absolute ball hawk, lockdown corner, and the Jags just desperately need it. I mentioned earlier, I like Tyson Campbell a lot, just doesn't stay healthy. And for someone that every week makes a touchdown score parlay, I'm always looking at, okay, who's playing the Jaguars and who are their receivers? Because this secondary got toasted all year. They're a bottom 5 passing defense in football. They need a lot of help on the back end. Will Johnson's a shutdown corner, and this is a plug-and-play easy pick for me.
Yeah, no, I like that one a lot. The Raiders pick is interesting to me because my gut tells me they will go quarterback, but they would trade back, because
who are you taking here? You can't.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying. So you can't do that. I'd like to go edge, but you have Max Crosby. You took
Tyree Wilson, but Tyree Wilson in 2 years has been bad. And also Tyree Wilson is 6'7". He has the ability to kind of move inside, and you do have Christian Wilkins, where it's like for a Raiders team, I wouldn't hate Abdul Carter, dude. He's
well, that's what I was gonna say.
Or Mason Graham.
I know, and I was going back and forth between those two guys. I mean, you could go Genty here. I might go Genty.
You could go Genty.
I might go Genty. You know what? I'm going to go Genty. Give me Genty at 6. And the reason why is, a lot of people be like, well, the running back position, is it really the top need? But this team could not run the football at all this year. And, obviously it's going to be tough at whoever they decide to put in that quarterback. But he is a massive upgrade over the different, running backs we saw. We saw Alexander Madison. We saw Zamir White. Those guys couldn't get it done. I mean, Sincere McCormick showed a little bit in his time before he left with a season-ending injury. The best back they had was like a 30-year-old Amir Abdullah. He is not the future. So, go and get the best running back in football in Ashton Genty. Whoever their quarterback is, this will take a lot of pressure off of them. And you just add another dynamic weapon to pair with Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers in this offense, really setting up whoever's playing quarterback to potentially have some success. And if they do really roll with Aiden O'Connell for another year, this is only going to help him. I mean, they might, roll the dice and be like, let's give him one more year. There's no quarterback we like, or, try to bring in a veteran to compete with them, kind of like they did with Minshew. But at least Genty will add, another dynamic part to this offense, which his team lacked, was a running game.
All right, for the Jets, I'm going to go Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. They really struggled to stop the run this year. I think you already have Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald at the edge spots, who are 2 young ascending players, and I like both of them a lot. And they've both proven themselves that they're already very productive pass rushers. Add Mason Graham next to Quinnen Williams, and now that defensive line is looking like something. I think Mason Graham has an absolute motor in the middle, great against the run. He's got some push in the interior, so I think this is a slam dunk pick for the Jets, man.
I got another slam. Speaking of slam dunks, I got a slam dunk for the Panthers here. They're going to go with the edge rusher out of Penn State, Abdul Carter.
I can't believe he slid to 8, but just how it happens, Abdul Carter at 8 is a phenomenal value.
Yeah, and hey, this is reaction in January. A lot will change between now and then, but at the end of the day, this team's leading sack guys were a tie between Jadeveon Clowney and A'Shawn Robinson at 5.5. Both of those guys are definitely not the future for the Panthers. Both of those guys are on the other side, or I'm sorry, Robinson's only 21, but still, both of those guys are, close to their 30s, Clowney being 31. So this team desperately lacks the need for some edge pressure. And guess what? Their best defensive tackle this year went down very early. I'm Why? I seem like such a casual
Derek
right now.
Brown.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. But yes, they lost Derek Brown very early on. So you get to pair Abdul Carter with Derek Brown. They can really get some stuff done and give the Panthers a much needed edge rush. This team, struggled on all facets, but at least getting some pressure can, help this defense improve right away. But, outside of that, I mean, I could see them, trying to target some different things here, but just with him sliding that far, it's a no-brainer.
No-brainer. I'm going to take Mykel Williams, edge out of Georgia. This dude has the potential to be a dominant pass rusher. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Trayvon Walker in the sense that, yes, he's from Georgia, but a very toolsy player that has certainly not reached his ceiling in college. I mean, this dude's frame is unreal. He's got long-ass arms. I think he's 6'5", like 260, 270. Just an absolute freak of an athlete. And with Cameron Jordan getting way up there in age, I mean, even if Cameron Jordan's going to be productive for another 2 years, you still need a lot more help on that D-line. So I think Mykel Williams will slot right in and maybe not be a monster sack guy year one, but a similar trajectory to Trayvon Walker where he puts it together and he could be a perennial double-digit sack guy.
Well, this mock draft is working out well for a lot of teams because I got Kelvin Banks Jr., tackle out of Texas. I mean, he's considered to be probably the best offensive lineman in this draft right now.
I disagree.
Right, oh, yeah? Who do you think?
Well, the guy I'm going to take next.
All right, fine. But still, I mean, they need a left tackle bad. Obviously, they were starting Larry Borom all year, and Caleb Williams was just running for his life. I know they drafted Darnell Wright. He ended up sliding into the right tackle. So, they're not going to give up on him. He'll probably stay there. But they really need another tackle. And I think Kelvin Banks can help solidify that. Caleb Williams was sacked just an unbelievably amount of times. And watching the games, you can't fully blame the line because it did seem like Caleb didn't have a lot of pocket awareness where he was holding onto the ball or trying to just make something where there was nothing. It's like, dude, just throw it away. So I'm not going to fully blame the line, but that needs to be the Bears' biggest need. And they got a lot of kickback last year because they opted to go with Adunze, a premium, when they already had Keenan Allen and DJ Moore overtaking an offensive tackle or an offensive guard. And you saw how it worked this year. Caleb Williams was running for his life. So they need to go offensive lineman with this pick.
I agree. I think the Bears definitely have to go O-line. I just would have taken Will Campbell, tackle out of LSU. For a pass rusher, if you get a sack a game, you're getting paid millions and millions of dollars. As an offensive lineman, Reagan, you let up a sack a game, you're working at Amazon. Words of the great Will Campbell. Will Campbell's been a stud at LSU the past couple years. I mean, he's about as a sure thing as you're going to get in this draft at the offensive tackle position. And the problem is a lot of these tackles, most of them don't have the length to stay at tackle in the league. So I think there's going to be a plethora of interior linemen down the board, but the premium tackles, you got to get them now. And I think Will Campbell, put him at right tackle initially if Trent Williams comes back, assuming he will because he's still a dog. And that's a pretty damn good bookend tackle duo. And then you eventually shift Will Campbell over to the left side once Trent Williams retires.
All right, so this one's going to be interesting because the Cowboys do have a lot of different needs. I'm going with Luther Burden here.
Yeah, that would have been my pick.
He's one of the better wide receivers in this class. And while Dallas does have bigger holes elsewhere, I think he'll pair nicely with CeeDee Lamb. I think Dallas is really missing that number 2 wide receiver. I mean, Cooks obviously was injured most of the year. Jalen Tolbert did have 8 touchdowns, but I don't see him, truly being that number 2. He seems like more of a number 3 for me. I'm assuming Dak Prescott will be their quarterback next year. I mean, obviously a lot can change between now and the draft, but as of right now, if you're asking me in January, will Dak be their quarterback next year? I'm saying yes. So, he'll really help add to that core. You could have gone Will Johnson here. The corner, there were a couple different options. Or I'm sorry, no, you took Will Johnson already, didn't you?
Yeah, I took Will Johnson at 5.
Yeah, never mind. What am I talking about? So, there's a lot of different options you could have gone here with the edge rushers here. But ultimately, you still got Micah. You're going to pay him. So I think you can just, really add to that offense that, seemed to struggle, especially when CeeDee went down. It was like, who do we go to? Jake Ferguson then became your de facto 1.
It's a good pick. It's a pick I would have made. I know a lot of people have Ashton Genty going there, but hey, he's in this scenario, he's off the board at 6. He's gone. Dave, you mind scrolling down a little bit? I just want to see some other options before I punch in this pick. Some dudes, man. There's some dudes. Jalen Walker's nice, linebacker out of Georgia. No, I'm good. I'm going to take go back up to the top. I'm going to take Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. I know safety's not a premium position, and usually they slide down the board. We saw Kyle Hamilton go 14th overall, and he's an all-pro player. Malachi Starks might be a top 5 just pure player in the draft. Been an absolute stud at Georgia. Can play in the slot, can play basically anywhere in the secondary besides probably boundary corner. So I think that versatility be very valuable. And you do have a guy like Jalen Ramsey, assuming he also doesn't demand a trade, in that room where you kind of have a great mentor for Malachi Starks. But just from a pure talent perspective, I think it's hard to pass on Starks here.
All right. So for the Colts, a lot of different options you can go here. But I'm going with a pass catcher. I'm going with tight end Tyler Warren. Colts
nice. Good
desperately
pick.
need
Good
a tight end.
pick.
This is one of the best tight ends in college this year. A lot of people will know more about him after tomorrow night. We're filming this on on Thursday. Will be the game between Notre Dame. So I think we'll have a big game against them, and more people will get to know this guy's name. And if they win, then even more guys will get to know his name. So he's a name that will keep sliding up draft boards. Seems like he's the best tight end. And I think after the past couple of years, it's proven that between Bowers and Laporta, tight ends could end up being your number one pass catching option. So it's worth taking the risk on them early on in drafts. So I think the Colts get him here. You need to get Anthony Richardson some weapons. It sounds like they've committed to him, so they want to, give him at least another year before looking at other options. And the best chance to do it would be giving him another weapon. You obviously got JT. Pittman is a number one. They need to get him on the same page. You got Alex Pierce. You got Josh Downs. But that's something this offense is missing, is a true dominant number one tight end, and Tyler Warren can be that for them.
Yeah, Warren's a stud, dude. That's a pick I would have made too. And it's kind of like that security blanket for Richardson where, he's been so inaccurate, but if you have a guy that he can rely on kind of in the middle of the field, it might really help him ascend his game. So that's a great pick. That's who I would have taken.
Yeah, my only downside on that would be his run blocking. But, with his size, if they can, he's 6'6", 260. So if they can figure out how to really unlock him as a run blocker, he'd be huge because obviously they already have a very good offensive line. So if they can fully develop him as a complete tight end, he could be very nice.
All right, Falcons. Is this the year? Well, I'm predicting it is. They take a pass rusher, James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Pierce was getting talks of being a top 5 pick before the season. He has all the tools in the world, just didn't fully put it together at Tennessee. You didn't see the production that you would have liked, but undeniable talent. I mean, he can be a double-digit sack guy year in and year out, and it's about time that the Falcons address the edge rusher position. It's just it's too good of a fit. It's too good of a talent to pass up at 15.
Yeah, sorry. Your mic, one of your mics was echoing, but I think I fixed it. Yeah, so number 16, we got the Cardinals here. And this is a tough one to me because
tough.
Obviously, you would have crap, did my screen froze? Oh, no, I'm good now. Obviously you can go a couple different options here, but I think I might end up going with an edge rusher here. I still feel like that's something that, Arizona's really lacking here. So I'm going to go with, I think I might go with Jalen Walker here out of Georgia.
I like Jalen Walker.
Obviously he is in a system where, we've seen a lot of Georgia guys be very nice off the edge. And I know he is an off-ball linebacker, but he seems like more of one of those hybrid players where you can kind of use him as a chess
both,
piece.
Yeah. He started as an edge rusher, but he kind of transitioned to off-ball. But, yeah, he's a freak athlete.
And that's the thing. I think a defense like this that is lacking, some star players and studs, take the risk on a chess piece like this at 16 where you can, kind of plug and play him in different packages where you need them. So I'm going to have them taking Walker at 16. I don't know if I'll ultimately have the Cardinals, taking him when it comes down to it later on, but gut reaction in January, I'm going Jalen Walker.
It's a good pick. I mean, usually you can't go wrong taking a Georgia defensive player unless you're the Giants and take DeAndre Baker, but that's beside the point. 17 for the Bengals. This is my last pick. It has to be defense. I'm going to go Siobhan Revel, corner out of East Carolina. Now, most of us probably aren't very familiar with East Carolina football. What I am familiar with is size and speed at the cornerback position. This dude's a burner. I think he's going to run high 4.3s, at least low 4.4s, and he's 6'3". So when you have that size and speed combo at corner, NFL teams just drool at the mouth to try to get one of those guys in the room. And we all know the Bengals need so much help on defense. I think a guy with the tools like Vrabel, although it's a small school, hey, look, we just saw Quinyon Mitchell come from a small school, and he's a beast, right? So I think Vrabel will be a big upgrade in that secondary.
Yeah, so I'm coming in at 18. Seattle, to me, has to go offensive line here. I mean, you see, and we didn't even talk about it before, they let their OC go, and, the team did go 10-7 this year, but to me, it was a failure, especially on the offensive side of things. I feel like they could have had a lot more done. I mean, with all those weapons, and even the run game. I mean, you watched, if it was Walker or Charbonnet, they were getting hit behind the line a lot. So I think, Josh Simmons will add some key protection into that team. Whether or not it's Geno, that is to be determined. But at the end of the day, they just need to get some solidity on the offensive line. And he's one of the better pass protectors, but he also excels well on some heavy run schemes here. So give me Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. And, he's a guy I'm going to be definitely watching some tape on over the next game, or maybe two, depending on how Ohio State does on Friday.
It's a good pick. I agree. Seahawks kind of have to go offensive line here.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that wraps it up. We're only doing the non-playoff teams. We'll have plenty of time to do a full draft once the order is decided. But I think that was very fun to do. I enjoyed doing it. Let us know in the comments, what we did wrong. I'm sure we didn't do anything right based off of what everyone will say, but let us know what we did wrong. What would you have done in this situation with how it worked out?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, dude. You know me. I love the NFL draft. I love doing mock drafts. It takes me back to my days in college where I didn't pay attention in class and just rip mock drafts for an hour. So always a fun exercise. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. We'll be back later in the week for the big pod, baby. Our playoff wildcard weekends, what we think is going to happen in our brackets. We'll see. Hopefully Reagan's doesn't get busted. Don't take like the Texans or the Broncos to win it all this year. No Cleveland Brown dark horse type teams.
Yeah, we'll see. Hey, we'll see. No promises. I will not promise nothing. Nothing.